So hello everyone, welcome to another video on Internet of Things. So we were doing this topic on software defined networking, and we are going to continue with that topic. In this video we are going to talk about how SDN, software defined network, is applicable in this field of IoT. More specifically, we are going to see how this WSN that we were talking about, how SDN is applicable in this with this WSN that we talked about. All right. So let us begin with the video. All right. So this WSN, they have some problems that are inherent to WSN. This vanilla WSN that we saw. Okay. So each of the node is full-fledged with all physical up to application layer functionalities, collectively behaving like an autonomous system that performs various networking functions such as data forwarding and network control. So although this architecture works well most of the time, due to many well-designed algorithms, it lacks good abstraction and carries too much complexity, making WSN unwieldy, inelastic to change, and hard to manage. So here they are saying that the WSN that we had, okay, this WSN contained all the layers from physical layer up to application layer. So it was a very heavy network protocol that each of the WSN had to manage. Now, since the network layer, the transport layer, everything were in this WSN, so this WSN were involved in everything like quality of service providing. Okay, so QoS assurance, then it was involved in routing, it was involved in uh, filling up this routing table, how the routing should take place. Okay, and it was involved in forwarding the data packets. So everything was being done in each of this node, and each of this node was a full-fledged node, right? So each of this node behaved like an autonomous system. So the the result of this was that each of the node was a very heavy, very uh, high processing things that were needed to be done by each of the node. All right. So that was one disadvantage that we had. Now because of this, what happened was that although this architecture worked well most of the time, but abstraction between this network functionalities, this routing mechanism itself, and the routing activity, that is the data forwarding, there was very less abstraction between these two. Okay, then there was less abstraction between the networking function and the application itself. And then because these were all distributed and there was no centralized management, okay, it was very difficult to change policy in this, and it was very hard to manage. Okay, it was difficult to change policy, these business policies that we had. So when we wanted to change this policy regarding the application, okay, so it was very hard to implement this change in policy, right? We had to go to each of the node and we had to reprogram them. So this was a problem that we had with our vanilla WSN. All right, and then it was very difficult to manage. We will talk about why it is difficult to manage in a later slide. Okay, so what the thing was that when WSN was originally conceived, okay, then WSN were meant to be very application specific. That is, each of the node, this entire network that we made, that is this WSN, each of the node served only one application. Okay, the WSN, the entire network was built to serve one application. Now this was okay when we had these devices that were very limited capability. Okay, when we had these very constrained devices, but nowadays these devices that we have, the sensor application and these platforms that we have, okay, these are multimodal and high-end sensor nodes. Okay, so multimodal means these nodes can work in different modes and they are very high-end. So these sensor nodes nowadays, are not as constrained as they were in the past. So some examples of these high-end sensor nodes are this iMod2, Stargate, NetBridge, and others. All right. So with these high-end devices that we have, Raspberry is another high-end device that we have. With these high-end devices that we have, this perception that we had that only one device served one application, that is changing. Okay, so let me give you an example. Say in Kaziranga we have one WSN. Okay, so in Kaziranga National Park, let us say we have this WSN that is composed of all these camera nodes. The sensors are cameras. So all these sensors we have, all these camera sensors we have throughout Kaziranga. Okay, with one application. The application was what? The application was to say track animals. Okay, so now we have a server. The server will act as a sink, and all the sensor nodes. The sensor is what? The sensor are cameras. So all these sensor nodes were sending data to my server, that is my sink. Now let us say I want to create another sensor node, sensor network. Okay, now I am interested in tracking poachers, say. So now I will have another sensor, another server that will be involved in looking for poachers. So now I have two sinks running two different applications, two servers running two different applications. Now in this vanilla WSN, what we would have had is we would have had two entirely different WSN networks. Okay, so in one place we would have had two different cameras. One is looking for animals, one is looking for poachers. So what would this do? This would have very massive resource underutilization. So multiple WSN for respective applications are deployed in the same or overlapping terrain when a single versatile WSN could achieve the same objective. So we have two WSN in our example when only one WSN would have been enough. Okay, so one camera could have sent this data to two different sinks, two different servers, and that would have been sufficient. But now in vanilla WSN we would have had two different cameras in one place. Okay, that would be resource underutilization. Another problem that we might have had is this: there would have been counter productivity. Okay, so say we have one WSN network and that has some functionalities. Now this second WSN network, this creator, this developer of the second WSN network will, if they want these functionalities that the first WSN had, they would have to reinvent the wheel. They would have to create these functionalities individually again. So these two different WSN networks, right, they wanted the same functionality, but it is being developed two types. Okay, so there is this reinvention of wheel, and this is going to be counterproductive, right? So there is no uh, reusing of the functionalities that is already being provided. So this would considerably expedite prototyping and production. So prototyping and production is going to be hampered if we cannot share this functionality that is already available in the one WSN. If that cannot be taken advantage of by this another WSN that is being deployed in parallel. Okay, so that is one counterproductivity. Okay, that is one uh, what inefficiency that we have. Okay, so this is one more problem with our vanilla WSN, our normal ordinary WSN without SDN. Okay, so there was resource underutilization, there was counterproductivity. And then these WSN nodes, as I already told you, they were very rigid to policy changes. What this means is that if we want to change policy, and what is policy? Policy means this network exogenous factors, right? They are not directly related to our networking activity that we have. They are more business operation and user needs level uh, problems. Okay, policy rules are related to network exogenous factors such as business operation and user access, as opposed to network endogenous factors like nodes and link properties. Okay, so this network endogenous factor like nodes, how to forward, how to create routing table, all these things. Okay, how to handle failure, how to handle end-to-end connection, and all these things, these networking related things, they are well studied and there these algorithms exist which can handle them very easily, okay, very properly. But then this policy level decision that we have to make, right? So this application specific decision, this business decision, this user needs decision, this decision, if we want to change, okay, then what would happen? We would have to go to all these WSN nodes and we would have to reprogram all these WSN nodes in our original WSN, vanilla WSN. Okay, I am using this word vanilla WSN to distinguish between our ordinary old school WSN and this new WSN, SDN based WSN that we are going to see very soon. Okay, I am using this vanilla WSN to indicate this old school WSN network that we studied about previously. Okay, so policy changes and engendered by the ever-changing business needs are hard to cope with by algorithms and often dictate manual reconfiguration and reprogramming of WSN, which is difficult because of vendors' complicated and often proprietary implementation. So uh, not only do we have to go and change all these, reprogram all these WSN nodes, okay, when we changed our policy, but reprogramming is also difficult because uh, of complication that arise out of these WSN nodes being proprietary. Okay, so different vendors will have different ways of programming these nodes, right? So this kind of difficulty is there in vanilla WSN. Another problem is this, that WSN network are hard to manage. Okay, so we have this network management software which will manage our wireless sensor network. Okay, now the problem is that most of the time we program this WSN network in one phase. First, we will program this WSN network with our application logic and we will finish the program, right? Once we are done programming our application logic, our networking logic, then in the second phase we will think about how to program a management software, okay, to manage this network. Now what will happen? We have already written some code, we have already written some program for this application and for this networking. Now we have to change this program, we have to glue this program, our management program, with this program. Okay, so we have to duct tape some solution. So this hacking, okay, that we have to do to our existing code, this is a big headache for developers and it is a very error prone process. Okay, so because of all this reason, creating a network management software for WSN networks, for vanilla WSN networks, is a very difficult task, right? So because it is very difficult to create this NMS, network management software system, okay, so management of the entire WSN network is a uh, problematic issue. All right, so these are some problems that we saw with SD with vanilla WSN. All right, now uh, sorry, okay, so how do we resolve this problem? All this problem arise out of because of this fact that our WSN, okay, this WSN are required to do several things, three things more specifically. One is to forward data, okay, another is to do this networking activities like routing, quality of service assurance, third is it has to run the application logic. Okay, there are three things that each of these nodes are required to do. Okay, and in normal WSN all of these were very much coupled together, there was a very high degree of coupling. Okay, so one way to uh, mitigate this problem is to decouple this high coupling that we have. Okay, so if we could uh, this data forwarding activity, we could decouple it into the data plane layer. This networking management and networking activities related things, the control level of the network could be uh, sent to the some other layer, network management layer. Okay, and this application logic could be in some other layer, in application layer. Okay, so this abstraction, this layering, this is very much, we have already seen this thing, it is given to us by SDN. Okay, so SDN already provides us all this facility. So a very good way to mitigate all this problem, to resolve all this problem with WSN, is to apply SDN in WSN. So we can go ahead and apply SDN in WSN, and that is what our target is going to be in this video. But the protocol that we saw, okay, the real implementation of SDN that we saw, that is our OpenFlow protocol. Okay, that gives us a few challenges. So the first challenge that OpenFlow gives us is this: the general OpenFlow that we have, okay, does not support wireless network. So when we saw this OpenFlow, okay, we saw this thing. This data layer was comprised of switches and routers, okay, which were basically wired devices, right? So OpenFlow was meant for wired devices. It did not support wireless device. Now, so because of that, uh, a modified OpenFlow is needed. Okay, so we will have to use some modified version of OpenFlow. The normal vanilla OpenFlow, the standard OpenFlow that we saw previously, is not going to work here. Then one more problem in WSN is that the users are mobile. Okay, the users can move around. The wireless sensor nodes are mobile in nature. So that is one more thing that was not there in our standard OpenFlow. So standard OpenFlow was made up of all these uh, fixed connection, right? We had these devices that were connected to one access point or something like that, which was a wired network. So there was no mobility of those devices. Compare that to WSN. WSN can move around. Okay, so with this movement of WSN nodes, some few more problems are going to arise. One is that the topology is going to change dynamically. So topology will keep changing as these nodes move around. The topology of the network will change. Next is that because of this change in topology, the way we are going to route this data, that is also going to change. So as the topology changes, as uh, our nodes move from one place to another, okay, so the way we route data from that node and to that node is going to change. So frequent change in rule placement is also needed. All right, so this is one more problem that this standard OpenFlow did not have. Then the last challenge is that there is a presence of heterogeneous device in the network. This is not much of a problem because even in OpenFlow network there was a presence of heterogeneous device, but in WSN also heterogeneous devices can exist in a network. Okay, so yeah, these are a few challenges that we have to overcome if we want to apply OpenFlow to WSN. So there was a solution provided by one paper, and in that paper they talked about two things. One is this SDWSN, software defined WSN, and the other is SOF, that is sensor overflow. Okay, so SDWSN is basically the architecture that separates this data layer and the control plane, this data plane and the control plane. Okay, so this separation basically exactly like the one that we had in uh, general standard OpenFlow. So in that we saw this separation between this data plane and control plane and application plane. So this SDWSN gives you that architecture itself. Okay, it is an architecture featuring a clear separation between a data plane and between a data and a control plane. Okay, then we have SOF, this sensor overflow. This is the core component of SDWSN as a standard communication protocol between these two planes. So like OpenFlow, so OpenFlow was what? OpenFlow was a protocol that was used to send these flow rules from this control plane to the data plane, the switches and other devices in the data plane, and from these devices in the data plane to the controller, okay, to the devices in the control plane. So this communication between this data plane and control plane was done by open flow protocol. So similarly, we have this architecture, this separation of data plane and control plane. Here in WSN, it is this architecture is given by SDWSN, and this protocol to communicate between these two layers is given by sensor overflow. Okay, these are modified version of your standard of open flow network that you have. All right, and these differences are needed for reasons that we are going to see eventually in this video. All right. So yeah, let us talk about this once again. What is data plane and what is control plane? We already talked about this in the previous video, but let us go through this once again. Okay, the data plane consists of sensors performing flow based packet forwarding. So in data plane, we will have this sensor node. Previously we had switches, now we will have the sensor nodes that will do what? That will forward packet. Okay, so these nodes will forward packet based on this flow table, and the control plane will consist of one or possibly more controller that centralizes all the network intelligence. So we may have one or more controller, but they will appear logically as if we have only one controller. Physically there might be more than one controller, but logically it will seem as if we have only one controller. All right, and this controller will centralize all the network intelligence. So all the task, all this management task of the network that is needed to be done will be done by this controller. Okay, so this controller will perform all these tasks such as filling up the flow table, that is your routing, basically management of routing, and this quality of service assurance, so QoS control. All right, so the whole idea is to make the underlying network, that is your data plane, programmable. Okay, so we will be able to program this data plane. How are we going to program it? By filling up these flow tables. So this flow table is user customizable, and we will be able to fill this flow table according to our need and convenience. All right, on each sensor using this sensor overflow protocol. So this is a diagram that explains this thing. We have this separation of application layer, this control layer, and this data plane layer. In our data plane layer, we have this several sensor nodes, and this is one sensor node that is shown to you in details. All right, in this sensor node, we have this flow table. We will talk about this flow table later on. And then we have this sensor node and this controller. All right, so this sensor node in the data plane layer and this controller in the control plane layer, they talk with each other previously through this open flow protocol that you have. Now they are talking with this spatial modified open flow protocol. We are calling it sensor of open flow. All right, so this is the architecture of SDWSN and sensor over open flow. All right, now you can see a few things in here. We have one module in here, it is called traffic gen, another module in network processing, and you have this sensor node. So this sensor node are not only involved in forwarding data, but it is also involved in what? Sensing the environment, right? So they will have some sensor. So this sensor hardware will be there with our sensor node, and we will talk about these two modules later on. All right, so bear with me for now. So this is what we have, this is the architecture. All right, so a few things that this SDWSN and SOF are required to provide are this. It should be whatever network, okay, we are going to transform this vanilla, this traditional WSN into SDWSN. So our SDWSN are going to hopefully be versatile. That is, it should support multiple application in a plug and play manner. Sensor are no longer application dependent but application customizable. This is achieved by number one, the programmable data plane which supports virtually all sort of packet forwarding rules, and number two, the control plane which decouples upper application from physical devices. and provides a global unified view of the underlying network to the application. So yeah, our network is now going to be versatile. What does this mean? Previously, our WSN was very application specific. When we deployed a WSN, we deployed the WSN after thinking about what is the application that this WSN is going to serve. So each of the network, each of this sensor node that we deployed was deployed to serve some particular application. Now with SDWSN, we are not dependent on one application. All right. So this sensor node may be deployed, and based on different application, it will route, and this routing mechanism will change. All right. So we are no longer dependent on one application. These nodes are no longer application dependent. Now these nodes are customizable. These nodes are application customizable. So we can customize this node to act on different application. All right. So how is this possible? This is possible because of two things. One is, we can now program each of this node to forward data as we want. Okay. So previously forwarding took place according to some routing algorithm. Okay, that routing algorithm ran in each of the node. Now this routing algorithm is going to run only in the controller. The controller is going to decide how these routing tables are going to be filled. Okay, these nodes previously they ran some routing algorithm and they filled this routing table. Now the controller is going to fill this routing table. Of course, we don't call it routing table anymore. We call it flow tables, but basically they mean the same thing. All right. So that is how we can program these nodes. And the second thing is this: these devices are decoupled, right? So the application layer resides somewhere very high above this data plane layer. Between this data plane layer, this control plane layer, and then we have the application layer. Okay, so the application is not as much coupled as it was before. Okay, so this network, this sensor network will exist, this sensor devices will exist, then the control layer will know about the entire network, all the sensors, how they are connected, what is the topology. The control layer will know globally how the networks are connected. It will have a global view of the network, and this global view of the network will be provided by the sensor layer to the application layer. So the application layer will be provided a unified global view of the entire network. So application layer is very much high in the layer protocol, right? So we can change the application as we want. Okay, at some point of time, maybe we have some application that is looking for animals in Kaziranga. At some other point of time, we can change that application very easily. Now we can look for poachers in Kaziranga. Okay, without making any change to our network, without making any change to our sensor nodes. So this is one advantage that SDWSN and SOF should provide us. All right. Next advantage that it should provide us is that it should be flexible. Flexible in the sense that it should be easy to enforce policy changes throughout the entire network, which used to be a tedious task and is prone to inconsistency. All right. So previously it was very difficult. We already talked about this. It was very difficult to enforce these policy changes. All right. We had to go to each of the node and reprogram these nodes. Now it was a very tedious task going to each of the node and reprogramming, and there could be inconsistency in the sense that we could maybe we have reprogrammed 99% of the nodes, 1% of the nodes are left out because of some management error. See, okay. So that is going to introduce some problem, right? So this changing policy was a very difficult task to do. Okay, now that should be removed. This difficulty should be removed. It should be flexible. Policy changes should be flexible. Okay, and it is achieved in SDWSN and SOF using this by the centralized and extremely granular network control in that is provided by the control layer. Okay, so granularity is supplied by the fully user customizable flow table. So granular means this granular means this like grains, right? uh, Very minute changes we can make. We can make only one change in one flow table, one flow entry at a time, say. Okay, so by changing this flow table by having by a centralized controller, okay, and making these minute changes in the flow rules, okay, we can completely change how this network is going to route our data. Okay, so we can keep changing our sync as we want by making this change in uh, this control layer. So previously our data was sending our previous policy was what was to look for animals in Kaziranga. Okay, so we were sending this data to the sync, to the server that had this program of looking for animals. Now in our control layer we are going to change this policy. Okay, now we are going to look for poachers. So in our control layer we are going to make this change, and our control layer is going to provide this new routing rules through which our camera feed is going to be provided to this new server, this new sync that is going to look for poachers. Okay, so it is very flexible now. We don't need to go to each of the node and make changes to change where the data is going to go. Okay, previously it went to the animal looking server, now it is going to go to the poacher looking server. And to make this change we don't need to go to each of the node and reprogram this node. We have to only make this change in the control plane, right? So because of this our network is going to be very flexible. Okay, next is it is very easy to manage. Why is it easy to manage? So see, this network management software, previously it was like everything else. This NMS was also very much highly coupled with the rest of the program. Okay, now because everything is decoupled, now there is this layered abstracted architecture. All right, because of that this NMS software is just like another application layer level software. Okay, in our control layer is going to provide a global view of the network to the application layer. In our application layer now we are going to write this network management system, this NMS software, and this NMS software is going to get a global view of the entire network from this control layer. All right, so it is going to talk with the control layer using open APIs that are available, and we don't need to go to this sensor nodes and make any change in sensor node. Okay, so this is one advantage that we have. So building an NMS is no different from adding another application on top of the control plane using open APIs and without hassle of hacking existing code. In addition, the centralized network view provided by the control plane is a great facility, as network administration prefers centralized NMS in practice. So network administration traders, they also like this centralized view of a network. Okay, and this view as we already said, already talked about, is provided by the control plane to the application layer. So network administrator, they also prefer this. Okay, so all these things make network management easy, right? So writing this software to manage network is easy, and also this global view is provided to the network administrator and to the networking software. So this global view also makes everything easy. Okay, previously everything was distributed and we had to make software for this distributed network. We have to make software to manage this distributed network. Now it is as if we are making a software to manage some centralized controlled network, right? So that makes management easy. Okay, so next we are going to look at a few technical challenges. Okay, so we are going to look at a few challenges, and then we are going to see how this SDWSN and SOF, how they propose solution to these challenges. Okay, so few challenges basically are this, that the fundamental assumption that open flow, the standard open flow that we talked about previously, makes is that the underlying network is comprised of high speed switches such as Ethernet and MPLS switches and IP routers. Okay, so previously we assumed that our this OpenFlow, this network, these devices in the data plane layer, they were switches and routers, and we assume that they are very high end, very powerful devices that that work with Ethernet or IP routers and things like that. Okay, so there was less latency. Uh, Things were good in the sense that there was end-to-end uh, end-to-end communication. How? Why was there end-to-end communication? That is a question that I am going to answer. But think about it. What is the thing that guarantees us end-to-end delivery? Okay. So end-to-end delivery was there in OpenFlow. Why was it there? Think about it. Very soon you will get the answer. But till the time you don't get the answer, think about it. Alright. So the fundamental assumption that OpenFlow makes is that the underlying network is comprised of high-speed switches such as Ethernet or MPLS switches and IP routers. So we assumed in OpenFlow that there was this high-end switches or high-end devices. Now in WSN we don't have this high-end network. Okay, we don't have these high-end devices. What do we have? We have devices like Bluetooth. We have devices like Zigbee. We have devices like 6 low WPAN. So this constrained low end, okay, very weak connecting technologies are now available to us. Okay, like Bluetooth, Zigbee, 6 low WPAN. So these are constrained networking technologies. Okay, unlike Ethernet, unlike Wi-Fi, full-fledged Wi-Fi, that is infrastructure Wi-Fi using access point. This new uh, connecting technologies, they are lossy. All right, so that is one problem that we have. They have limited bandwidth. Okay, that is another problem. Okay, so this difference is there. Okay, so OpenFlow deal with these high-end devices. Sensor OpenFlow is going to deal with these lossy low-end networking devices. Okay, networking technologies like Bluetooth, Zigbee, 6 WPAN, and those. All right. Then there is this another thing. OpenFlow was designed as a wired protocol. Of course, we talked about this, and its typical use cases are data center, cellular backhaul, enterprise Wi-Fi backbone, and wide area networks. Right. So we talked about this with the example of Google data center. So what was available in data center? In data center, we can have a different say network entirely. So for this OpenFlow switches and OpenFlow controllers to talk with each other. Okay, so it is possible to provide out of band network, out of band connectivity in OpenFlow in a data center. Okay, or in an enterprise Wi-Fi backbone. It is possible to provide out of band connectivity. But in WSN, which is going to be deployed over a large area, say we were talking about Kaziranga. Okay, so in Kaziranga, it's hundred of square kilometers, right? So it is very difficult to. It is not difficult. It is nearly impossible to have two separate networks. One is for data communication, another is for this communication between your controller and nodes, right? So that is not possible in WSN. All right, having out of band communication. So this is one more problem we need to deal with, in band communication. All right, so this is one more difference that we have, right? So uh, in normal OpenFlow, it was designed for infrastructure network that is very well managed, that is very high end. Now we have this very low end and very constrained network in sensor over OpenFlow, right? So yeah, compared to WSN, this represents significant disparities and lead to major challenges in designing as well. So compared to uh, normal OpenFlow, these challenges, uh, they are major challenges that we have to deal with when we are using this sensor OpenFlow. All right. So first challenge. So creating flows. OpenFlow implicitly assumes the presence of IP-like addressing so as to create flows. For example, it defines match fields such as IPv4 source, Ethernet destination, MPLS label to match packet with IPv4 sources address, Ethernet destination address, MPLS label respectively. So what this means is that in normal OpenFlow, these flow tables, right? Uh, these flow rules, they have all these fields like IPv4 source, Ethernet destination, MPLS labels. So these fields, they assume that some IP address or Ethernet MAC address, this kind of addresses are available. Okay, so there is this address based routing that is very inherent to OpenFlow. All right, but in WSN, we are not as interested in address as we are in our normal networking, right? In WSN, we are more interested in what is the value that some device is providing us. Maybe there is some sensor, and we will talk about this sensor like this sensor is giving me a temperature reading of 30 degrees. All right, maybe some other sensor, we will talk about that sensor as if, okay, that is in zone 7, that is in x coordinate 150. Okay, so we are not interested in this IP like address of these sensor nodes. Okay, in WSN, we are more interested in what the sensor values that these nodes are giving us. Okay, so that is one major difference between our normal network and this WSN based network. So how opposed to address centric OpenFlow network, WSN are typically data centric. So acquiring data of interest is more important than knowing who sent the data, and employ different addressing such as attribute based naming. Example, nodes whose sensing temperature is greater than 30 degrees Celsius. All right. So you see this problem. The problem is basically this, that in normal SOF, in normal of OpenFlow, we addressed all this system, all these different end system using IP addresses, using addresses. Okay. Now we are talking about these nodes using their some different things, their data. Okay. So this is one more problem that we have. So this problem needs to be addressed. So how are we going to address this? This is the proposed solution. There are two solutions that are proposed. Number one solution is to create an address. Okay. So create some other address that is not IP. So what kind of address are we going to create? So these are given. Two classes of address are given. This is class 1 and class 2. Okay. So first solution is to redefine flow tables to cater for the spatial addressing scheme in WSN. So class 1 is going to do what? It is going to have this compact network unique address such as Zigbee's 16-bit network address. So instead of using this IP address, we can use this Zigbee's 16-bit address. All right. Then Bluetooth has this MAC address. So instead of using IP address, we can use this address. Okay. So if we use this address, then that would be class 1. Class 2 is this. It is called concatenated attribute value pairs, CAV. And what is this? This is also an address, but it is based on data. Okay, this attribute value of the data. For example, here it is given temperature 30 less than temperature less than 60. Okay, so this is an example of an address. Then zone ID equal to 7 and x coordinate greater than 150. This is an example of an address. So these address are based on this attribute. Like this attribute is temperature and value is this 30, 60. These are values. So this concatenated address attribute and value. Okay. So this string can be an address. So this kind of address would be class 2. Okay. So this is our first solution. First solution was what? To create this special address, use this special address. How many kinds of addresses? Two kinds. One is class 1. Class 1 is what? To use this unique address, for example, given by Zigbee's 16-bit network address or Bluetooth's MAC address. Class 2 is what? To use this concatenated attribute value pairs, CAV. So that has this type of addressing. So 30 less than temperature less than 60 or zone ID 7 and X coordinate greater than 150. So this kind of CAVs. Okay, this is solution 1. Solution 2, which is in my opinion, okay, this is personally my uh, own opinion, okay, so take it with a grain of salt. This solution I like better than the previous solution. This is to use low and full stack IP protocol. Okay, so the second solution is to augment WSN with IP, for which we capitalize on and recommend two off-the-shelf IP stack. So two uh, IP stacks are provided. Okay, they are recommended by this paper, and they are these two: UIP and UIP v6. Okay, this is available in this operating system called Contiki OS, which is the operating system for this WSN and IoT devices. It is made by companies like Cisco, SAP, Redwire, SICS. Okay, so big companies are involved in developing this protocol. It is a lightweight IPv4 implementation that is available in this lightweight operating system called Contiki OS. Okay, this operating system is made for WSN devices, for IoT devices. Okay, so this is one full IP stack that you have. Okay, so similar to UIP, we have this UIP v6, which is implementation of IPv6. Okay, UIP is IPv4, UIP v6 is IPv6. Okay, so these are lightweight implementation of your full IP protocol. Another similar lightweight implementation is this uh, Berkeley IP implementation, BLIP, which is for low constraint low power network. Okay, so this is BLIP is a IPv6 stack that is available in this tiny OS. This is a OS for this embedded system, like very low with very low constraint for devices. This constraint devices, okay. uh, this OS is for low power devices, low processing capability and all those kind of devices that are based on 6LoWPAN. Okay, this protocol is based on 6LoWPAN, so it has IPv6 capability. So this UIP, UIPv6, BLIP, these are lightweight but full IP protocol. Okay, now I say that I prefer this over this first solution, this second solution. Okay, uh, can you think about other reasons apart from the availability of IP address? Can you think about other reasons why one would prefer this full IP stack? Okay, now having full-fledged IPS stack, okay, is difficult, okay, in terms of processing capability, but then these are lightweight IP stack. Okay, so they can run on WSN and low power devices in IoT devices. So that is one advantage. So you get IP address. So all these IPv4 source, this kind of fields can now be filled. Alright, so this is one advantage that is given by full stack. Another we will talk about very soon. More specifically, we are going to talk about in this slide. See, OpenFlow channel is a end-to-end connection used to transmit control messages between a controller uh, and a switch. Okay, so to communicate between your controller and switch, you need a end-to-end connection. Alright, a end-to-end connection that assures delivery, that assures this QoS, okay, that delivers message in order. So all these things are are necessary when you want your controller and nodes to communicate with each other. All right. So this is one more reason why I prefer that uh, UIP, UIPv6 and BLIP, because this end-to-end connection in sensor in normal in standard OpenFlow is provided by TCP. Okay, TCP, unlike UDP, provides us end-to-end connection. So a reliable channel is provided by TCP. So this channel must provide TCP/IP connection for reliable end-to-end in-order message delivery, and the two end parties are identified using IP address. So in OpenFlow, what happened? TCP provided this channel that was required. Okay, this in-order delivery and this end-to-end connection. Right. This was provided by TCP. Now in SOF, if we don't use UIP, UIPv6 or BLIP, TCP will not be available, and then IP address is also not available. So this problem needs to be addressed, right? So here is the solution. Solution is that if we choose the first technique that was provided to us to use this redefined flow table using class 1 or class 2 addresses, okay, then what will happen is that we have to write our own software to provide this end-to-end uh, channel. All right, this end-to-end assurance, this in-order delivery, and then QoS have to be provided by ourselves. We have to write software to do this thing. Okay, so if we choose the first technique, right? So yeah, then if the network operator chooses the non-IP solution, that is redefining flow table, then the SOF channel can be supplied by overlaying a transport protocol directly over WSN. So this channel, this end-to-end channel that is required has to be supplied by creating some kind of a transport protocol on top of this WSN. So we have to create some transport protocol on top of this WSN. Okay. Otherwise, if the network operator chooses to augment WSN with IP, that is by using UIP or IPv6 or BLIP, then TCP is already available. Okay, so since TCP is available, so TCP automatically will give us this end-to-end connection. So this is one more reason why I prefer the second solution over the first solution. All right, but that is entirely my opinion. Now, in some cases, if we have very constrained devices, of course, it is not possible to run entire IP stack uh, efficiently. So there will be cases when second solution is not possible at all. We have to go with the first solution, but if possible, I would prefer second solution. Okay. So this is my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't don't take it seriously. Okay. Think about it yourself. Make your own choice. All right. Then the next is this. The next problem is that there is overhead of control traffic. SDN can and usually would host the OpenFlow channel out of band. Okay, so normal SDN would have a out of band connection, that is using a dedicated separated network. This is not practical in WSN, and the SOF channel has to be hosted in band, that is by the WSN itself. Thus, the resource constrained WSN will have to additionally carry control traffic between controllers and sensors. Okay. So see, in normal OpenFlow, that is in our data center and all those places where OpenFlow is used, okay, a separate network already might exist for communication between these controllers and between this controller and switches. Okay, so out of band uh, network, okay, this OpenFlow channel will be provided out of band, but in WSN, because it will be spread over a large area and then it will be exposed to the elements of nature, okay, because of this it is not practical to have two entirely different network over this large area, right? So we have to provide this channel through which this controller and nodes will talk through this WSN itself, through this wireless sensor network itself. This network itself will be used to send this control packets, right? So this resource constrained WSN network, okay, they have to carry data. Now they have to carry these messages between controller and sensors as well. So this is going to put some more pressure on the network, okay, and there is going to be some overhead of this control traffic. Unlike our standard open flow, okay, here in WSN the control traffic will be higher, okay. Why is it going to be higher? Because of the very dynamic nature of our network, okay. There will be node and link failure, so there will be link failure, and now sensors nodes will have to send this packet in to the controller, and controller will have to send this packet out or flow mode to the sensor with this new link, right? So link will fail, nodes will fail, then energy aware routing has to be done, and then these nodes will move around. All these things will give rise to lots of dynamism in the network. All right. So because of this, uh, there is going to be more control traffic than normal standard open flow, okay. In open flow, network is not as dynamic as in WSN. So this WSN is going to make our network dynamic, and because our network is going to be dynamic, there is going to be more control packets, right? Because of this dynamic nature of the network, more control of the network is necessary. We have to change our flow tables more rapidly, we will have failures more rapidly. So because of all this, there is going to be more control packets in this network, okay. So if we do not control all these packets, okay, all these uh, control packets, then our WSN network will be overloaded, okay. More than data network, we will have control packets in the network. So this is one more challenge. How are we going to address this challenge? Okay. Before we talk about how we are going to address this challenge, we are going to make two observations. Okay, make a few observations. First observation is this: there are only two type of packets, right? There are only two type of control packet. One is packet in, that is sent from this sensor node to the controller, and another is packet out or flow mode, that is sent by this controller to the sensor node, okay. So the control traffic carried by the in-band SOF channel may overload that underlying WSN. Our solution is based on following observation, okay. First observation: the control traffic is mainly comprised of two type of control messages. One is packet in and the other is packet out, also called flow mode. A packet in is a flow setup request sent by a sensor to a controller to seek instruction on how to handle an incoming packet upon table miss. So when there is a table miss, when there is a new packet comes in and we don't know how to forward this table, that is a packet miss, right? So when we have such a packet miss, what are we going to do? We are going to ask the controller, what will I do? Send me a rule that will enable me to handle this packet, okay. So how are we going to send this message to the controller asking for a rule? We are going to send a packet called packet in, a special kind of packet, okay. Then a packet out or flow mode is the response from the controller giving the instruction to the requesting sensor, right? So the packet out or flow mode is the response from the controller to our node, okay. So we have these two types of packets that are basically our control packets, okay. So our control traffic is going to be comprised of these two type of packets. Second observation is this: the control traffic resulting from this can be significant because WSN traffic is often bursty, and an event of interest can trigger a large swarm of packets from several sensors. leading to many flow setup requests simultaneously. This scenario repeatedly appears because each flow entry is associated with an expiring timer. Okay. So what might happen? This. So say we have this sensor network. Okay, and our sensor network will do what? It will send data to a sink when temperature is going to be above say 30 degree. Okay, so we have this threshold 30 degree, and if temperature goes above 30 degree, we will send data. So now we will alert the sink, our server. Okay, we will send some packet to the server, and that is how we will alert the server. So what are we going to do? The entire, say throughout the night, okay, temperature is less than 30 degree. Now in the morning also temperature is less than 30 degree. Now at noon, say our temperature is more than 30 degree. Okay. Now all these sensors that we have, all of them are going to feel that it is now more than 30 degree. Now what are they going to do? All of them are simultaneously going to send data to the sink. Alright. Now suddenly lots of data will be sent. Now what is going to happen? If all these sensors do not have this rule on how to send data to the sink, okay, this flow rule is not available, okay, then all of them are going to request controller that send me how this flow rule on how I send data to the server, to the sink. Okay, and why is it going to happen? Why will everyone not have this flow rule? Because there is a associated timer with this flow rule. Say my flow rule expires after 1 hour. Okay, so what will happen? My today when I had 30 degree, okay, I sent data. Okay, initially I did not have a flow rule. I asked the controller for the flow rule. The controller gave me the rule that this is how you will send the data. Send data through this rule. This is how you will forward the packet to send your temperature data to the server, to the sink. Okay. Now my flow rule I have inserted into my flow table. Okay. Now using this flow rule I am sending data. Fine. I am sending data. Temperature is above 30 degree. I am sending data. Now at night the temperature goes below 30 degree. Okay, now I am not sending data anymore. What is going to happen? After a certain amount of time, after this timer that I have, okay, after this amount of time my flow rule is going to be deleted, right? So all these nodes, okay, together the flow rule will be deleted at night. Tomorrow when the temperature goes above 30 degree again, none of these sensor networks are going to have this flow. So at once all of them are going to send data. As soon as the temperature goes above 30 degree, all of them are going to send packet to the controller, this packet into the controller asking for flow rule, right? So this is one problem. This is one observation that we make, that how is this flow rule traffic, this control traffic, this packet in and packet out, they are the major control packets, right? So all these packet in are generated simultaneously like this. This is another observation that we made. Okay, so what is the solution? The solution is this: when a sensor, okay, say I have a sensor, all right, and a few sensors are going to send data to the sink through me. Okay, now what will happen? Say I have received several packets, okay, and all of these packets are going to have what? So all of these packets are going to have the destination address of one location. So in WSN, usually all nodes send data to some server. We call it the sink, right? So everyone is going to send message to the sink. I am routing data of several nodes are routing data through my node. Okay, so this node is going to receive several packets and it is going to generate its own data as well, right? So this is what is going to happen. So what will, all these packets are going to be missed, right? But for each packet I am not going to send a packet in request to the controller. So all of these are going to have the same destination. So if all these packets have the same destination, I am going to send, for the first packet, I am going to send a packet in message to the controller, and unless and until I receive a packet out or a flow mode from the controller, okay, or some timeout has occurred, I am not going to send one more packet in. Okay, I am going to suppress this packet in subsequent packet in messages. Okay, so this is how I reduce this control messages. Okay, so our solution: a sensor only sends one packet in for the first table miss and suppresses subsequent packet in whose associated packet have the same destination address. Destination address can be class 1 or class 2, does not matter, as the first packet. Okay, or we will send only the first packet when we have a table miss. Only the first packets we will send a packet in for that packet. All the subsequent one we will stop. Okay, until the correspondent packet out or flow mode is received or a predefined timeout occurs. Now there are two reasons why we do this. Okay, one is this. See, by the time we send the packet in and by the time we receive the packet out, it can be a very long time. Okay, we may have a very high latency. Why? Because our network is constrained. We will have these technologies like Bluetooth, Zigbee, 6LoWPAN. These are very constrained networking technologies. Like because of this, our SWAP channel may be slow. Okay, compared to normal standard open flow. Okay, so because of this there might be high latency. Okay, and so it might take some time to receive this packet out. After we send a packet in, it might take some time to receive the packet out. In the meantime, we may have a large number of packets that are coming in. Okay, so if we keep sending for each packet, then this packet in messages is going to overwhelm the network, right? Instead of sending data, the network will be sending this packet in messages. Okay, the network should be sending data, the network should be forwarding data, not forwarding this control messages, right? So yeah, our network may be slow, so because of this we will wait. Okay, instead of sending packet in messages, just send me the rule over and over again, we will wait. Our network may be slow, so that is one reason. Another reason why we will wait is this: usually our traffic is upstream, that is from sensor to the sink. Okay, so destination address will be one. Okay, for all these packets. So instead of sending for all these different packets, all of these different packets are going to have the same address, right? The same destination address. So sending just one packet is more than sufficient. Okay, so for the second packet also we are going to get the same rule. For the third packet also we are going to get the same rule. Basically the rule is going to be what? How do I forward for this destination packet, right? So this two logic. Okay, the rationale is twofold. First, because the end-to-end SOF channel is slow, as it is in-band in WSN, the latency between sending in packet and receiving packet out or flow mode is much larger than in open flow. Therefore, there can be a large number of incoming packets during this interval. Okay. Secondly, since the major traffic in WSN is upstream, that is from many sensors to one or a few sinks destination, it is effective to use destination address to bundle packets into flows. Okay, so that is what we have, the proposed solution. Now the next challenge, it is traffic generation. Okay, now in our normal standard open flow, okay, in data plane, what do we have? We have all these switches, routers, etc. These switches do not generate traffic. Okay, so who generates traffic? My laptop. Okay, my laptop will be connected to some router. Okay, my laptop is going to generate traffic. The router is not going to generate traffic, right? So these devices in the data plane, these routers, these switches, they are not going to generate traffic. Uh, in OpenFlow. Okay, contrast this with uh, WSN. Right, in WSN what happens, all these nodes, right, they are going to forward uh, this data. So they are going to act like router and switches. Okay, they are involved in forwarding data, but also they are sensor nodes. So they have sensors, they are going to also generate data, right? So compare these two, right? There is a difference in standard OpenFlow. All these devices, they do not generate any data. In uh, this SOF, sensor overflow, our devices in data plane, they are also going to generate data. So that is what it says. End users are considered peripheral to SDN, hence out of scope of OpenFlow. On the contrary, sensor nodes behave like end users by generating data packets in addition to merely forwarding data as OpenFlow switches do. Alright. So in SDN, these end devices, they are considered as peripheral devices. They just are attached to the network and they generate data. Okay, they are not part of the network. They are peripheral devices outside the network. But in SOF, okay, these uh, network devices itself, these devices that are acting like switches and routers, these nodes that are acting like switches and routers, they also generate traffic. So that is the difference between your standard OpenFlow and this sensor OpenFlow. So this is one more challenge. So how do we resolve this challenge? So this is the solution that is proposed, that we add a module, that is your traffic generation module. Okay, TrafGen. It is a simple module that can be implemented as an interrupt routine, because sensory data generation consists of two very simple steps. Okay, this module can be implemented as a very simple interrupt routine. So it is going to do only two things. One, it is going to sense the data from the sensor. Number two, it is going to convert this data to whatever format we want. Okay, so it depending on implementation, this can be implemented in three different ways. Okay, it can be blocking. Number one, it can be blocking. What does this mean? It means that we are going to, our program is going to run, and then unless and until data is available from the sensor, it is going to stop. Okay, it will stop doing all these networking activities, it will stop doing anything else, it will simply stop, it will simply wait for the data to be available. Okay, once the data is available, it will send data, it will resume its other activities like forwarding packets and all these things. Okay, once again remember, these nodes, sensor nodes in a WSN are involved in two things. It is involved in sensing data and sending that data, and it is also involved in routing packets from other nodes. Okay, so it can run in blocking mode. Okay, in blocking mode, it is going to stop and wait until data is available. Okay, once data is available, it is going to start running. Then number two, it can run in callback mode. In callback mode, what will happen? It will keep on doing its network related tasks. When data is available, a function will be called. Okay, there will be a callback function, and then function will be called. Okay, so that is what we have. So in callback mode, there will be a callback function. Most of the time, it will asynchronously keep on running all these other activities, and when data is available, it will this callback function will be triggered. Okay, and then the third way in which it can run is in a round robin fashion. Okay, it will look at whether data is available, and then it will do some networking tasks, look at data available and networking tasks. So it will keep on running in this round robin fashion. All right, so this is how your traffic gen module can be implemented in these three different ways. Okay, so blocking, callback, or round robin. And what is the task that this has to do? This has to simply read the sensor data and convert it into some format. Okay, so this diagram that we had, okay, here you can see this sensor hardware is there, and then you have this traffic generator module. Okay, this traffic generator module is going to generate traffic and send this traffic to our sink, okay, using this flow table. Okay, so sensing hardware goes to traffic gen uses this flow table to send this data to our server, to our sink. Okay, so this traffic generation is not done uh, in normal this OpenFlow. Okay, these switches and routers in OpenFlow, they are not involved in generating traffic. So this traffic generation is something that is very unique in SDWSN. Okay, in sensor OpenFlow, it's not available in normal standard OpenFlow. All right. So next problem is in network processing. Okay, so one more thing that WSN does is inside processing. So at times WSN need to process data inside, that is perform data aggregation or decision fusion in order to reduce data redundancy and conserve network resources such as bandwidth and energy. This is another feature absent in SDN. So all these sensor nodes, they also will do some processing, okay, on the data. So in normal OpenFlow, in standard OpenFlow, our switches and routers, they were not involved, okay, in processing data. Their task was simply to forward data. Now take this thing also with a grain of salt. Later on we are going to talk about fog computing. Okay, when we talk about fog computing, we will see some changes in this thing that I am talking about right now, that these routers and switches do not process data. Usually they do not, but people are doing research on how they can be used to process data, but forget that. Okay, right now we assume that they do not, that these switches and routers, they do not process data in standard OpenFlow. Okay, compare that to your sensor network. Okay, in sensor network, these sensor nodes, they may process data. Okay, so inside these nodes itself, these nodes are what? These nodes are devices in the data plane. They are devices that forward data. These are devices that act like routers and switches. All right, so these devices, they are also involved in processing, right? Processing data. So processing data to do what? To do data aggregation, like finding mean, median, mode, etc., average, or data fusion, fuse two different data, or to look at whether some redundant data is being sent or some incorrect value is being sent, right? So why do we need to do this? Maybe to reduce network utilization. Okay, we want to conserve our network resources such as bandwidth, we want to conserve energy, say we want to maybe reduce redundant data. So all these things we want to do in a sensor node. Okay, this is absent in normal SDN, this is absent in a normal OpenFlow network. All right, so this is one more challenge that we have. How do we solve this challenge? This is the proposed solution. So there is one more module, like we have this traffic generation module, we have this in network processing module. Okay, if processing is not needed, then the packet will be simply sent according to the flow table rule. Okay, it will be forwarded, it will be sent to the network according to the rule in the flow table. In case it is needed, okay, and most of the time this data aggregation may be needed, it may be some basic things like average, mean, median, mode, removing redundant data. So these are very common in network processing that might be done. Okay, so we receive some packet. If that packet need not be processed, we simply forward it according to flow table rule, and if it is needed to be processed, then we process it, and then we, if it is needed to be sent, we send our processed packet or whatever is need to be done. Okay, we may this in-net processing. This module is responsible for running some algorithm. This algorithm will do what? This algorithm will process our data inside. Okay. Now this may happen. We may need to change our processing algorithm. say today we are interested in finding the mean of the data. Okay, so for some reason we are interested in finding the mean of the data, so the algorithm that we are going to run is going to find the mean of the data. Okay, tomorrow maybe we will be interested in finding the median of the variance of the data. All right, so tomorrow we will have to run a different algorithm. So what do we do? Do we go to each of the node and change the algorithm? This algorithm of the in-net procedure, of course all these other algorithm we need not change. All right, this routing features, how to route the data, how to sense using sensor, all these things we need not change. We put them once, fine, we need not change them. These are very basic. We want to change the routing protocol, we want to make some changes in the routing, we are not going to go to the node and change. We are using uh, SDN based technology, right? We are going to change simply in the control plane. We are going to change in the controller, so we don't need to go to the WSN and change that. But this in network processing, this processing algorithm, we may need to change. Today we were finding mean, tomorrow we are going to find variance. So we need to change this algorithm. What do we do? Do we go to each of the device and change the algorithm? That is not possible, right? We already talked about this being a disadvantage in normal WSN. We cannot have this disadvantage in SDN WSN. Okay, so what do we have? We have this technology called over the air programming, OTA programming. Okay, so Libelium is a software that is available that enables us to do secure and interference free over the air programming. Now what is over the air programming? It allows us to write program for the WSN and upload program to this WSN nodes wirelessly. Okay, it enables us to reprogram these devices wirelessly. Now a very good example of OTA, I learned about OTA back in 2012, I believe, when this 2012, yeah, 2012, when Curiosity rover was launched to Mars by NASA, right? So back then, Curiosity was launched. It is a rover, Mars Science Laboratory, MSL. So what happens is that when you launch from Earth to Mars, it takes 8 months to reach there. So what do they do is this: they launched the rover, and they had 8 more months to refine their software. Okay, now their rover is already launched, and using this OTA technologies, they can write program on Earth and they can send this program, they can reprogram this rover that is somewhere far away wirelessly. So back then I heard about this OTA, and we tried, means I had a friend who tried experimenting with OTA, not on space but experimenting. He had some robot car that he tried to program successfully. He tried that successfully to program using OTA. All right. So OTA is what this is very handy. So you can see with this Mars example. Okay, you have a device, you launch it, right? You send it far away, and then at some later point of time, you can reprogram that device from far away, right? So your WSN devices, these sensor nodes will also be far away, right? Today you are doing mean, tomorrow you want to find variance, so you will can reprogram all these devices to run this new algorithm using OTA from far away, right? So if the processing is an processing in-network processing module is added for in-network processing. If the processing is not needed by a packet, this module simply passes the packet intact to the flow table. In case of possible future changes to the processing algorithm, we use OTA, a commercially available technology that allows updating sensor firmware and software wirelessly and remotely. Libelium, for instance, offer a package that features secure and interference-free OTA programming over a large network in seconds or up to a few minutes. So yeah, this is what we talked about. Data aggregation is the most common in-network processing and can usually be accomplished using standard operations such as average, median, mean, max, or removing redundant data. Alright, so yeah, this is what we talked about already. This is what we have. Then the final challenge, backward and peer compatibility. So sensor overflow should desirably provide backward compatibility with respect to traditional, that is your non-over open flow and non-sensor open flow networks. So SOF network should provide backward compatibility with your normal network. This is required to protect legacy investment. So all these older devices that you have, if our new SOF based network is not compatible with your old devices, then this old investment that you made will go to waste. So in order to protect these old devices, this old investment, our new network should be compatible with your old network, right? So that is what you have. It is also desirable for SOF to offer peer compatibility, that is to be compatible with open flow networks that are being developed concurrently and standardized for interoperability purposes. So what they are talking about is this, our sensor open flow. Okay, one more challenge in sensor open flow was this, that our sensor open flow should be compatible with old traditional networks. So traditional network could be of two types. One is open flow based network, another is non-open flow based network, right? So there are two types of traditional network that may be available, and then SOF should provide backward compatibility with this network, and also SOF should provide compatibility with uh, other open flow based protocols that are being simultaneously developed by other people. Okay, so SOF is something that is developed by this paper that we were referring. Some other, like there is one called soft SDN, right, or soft WSN, right? This soft WSN was developed by someone called Sudeep Mishra, Professor Sudeep Mishra. He's a professor at IIT Kharagpur, professor of IoT. uh, so they have developed something called soft WSN. So that is one more SDN based, open flow based, this networking, right? So this SOF, they try to be compatible with, they try to provide backward compatibility with standard open flow and non open flow based traditional network, and they want to provide peer compatibility with all these different open flow based network that are being developed simultaneously. Okay, so this, before I read this out, okay, what is written here, I want to say that we will not be going into deep about how this backward and peer compatibility is provided, okay, because this needs a more detailed understanding of how flow table is managed. There is something called Ethernet type. There is a field called ETH type. Okay, so ETH type, based on whether you are using Ethernet or you are using MPLS, uh, or whatever you are using. Okay, different protocol. This ETH type field will carry different number. Okay, so in order to provide backward compatibility, we this paper proposes a few numbers, okay, standard numbers. For example, uh, say Ethernet says 100, okay, MPLS says 200, so they have tried to say 300 and 400 the value for uh, class 1 and class 2 connection flow entries in the table, right? So we need to know about what ETH means, what the different values for different network technology is, so all these things. So uh, since we did not study OpenFlow in that depth, this is of course not a course on networking, this is a course on IoT, so we don't need to go into that depth. But then understand this is a area of active research. Lot of research is being done in this area on how to provide backward and peer compatibility, and yeah, that's what you have. So SOF inherits backward compatibility with OpenFlow. Okay, a SOF hybrid sensor will have a normal logical port defined similarly as OpenFlow, which directs packets to traditional sensor network forwarding. So a SOF hybrid sensor will have two type of ports. One is your normal port, which is similar to OpenFlow and normal network, and another is SOF type port, which will be based on sensor overflow, OpenFlow. Okay, so that is one way of providing backward compatibility. Okay, peer compatibility is what I talked about. To be compatible with OpenFlow, to be compatible with this OpenFlow peers, SOF should enable OpenFlow to recognize this SOF flow and tables, so that OpenFlow can relegate class 1 and class 2 flow entries to SOF. So what will happen? This flow table, okay, there will be, if I provide this peer compatibility or backward compatibility, this SOF should be able to distinguish between these different flow rules. Okay, for example, SOF this OpenFlow should know that this particular flow rule, okay, is for class 1 or class 2 of SOF, right? So what I'm talking about is this. I already told you that there is something called ETH type. Now class 1 will have some Ethernet, I said, had some value for ETH type. MPLS had some value for ETH type. Class 1 will have some value for ETH type, and class 2 will have some value for ETH type. Alright. So when OpenFlow will see that this flow rule, okay, this particular flow rule has this value of ETH type, it will know that this is a class 1 type flow entry rule, and it is provided to me by SOF. Now I can send this, I can relegate this to SOF. Okay, if this OpenFlow will look at the ETH type, and that is how the OpenFlow will know that this particular flow entries in the flow table are from sensor overflow. It is not by normal over OpenFlow, and it's not by any other OpenFlow implementation that may be possible. It is provided by sensor OpenFlow. So by looking at the ETH type, okay, that particular field, your OpenFlow will know that these particular fields are by SOF, by sensor OpenFlow, and these flow rules will be given to sensor OpenFlow. OpenFlow itself will not work on that. Okay, so that is how there would be some kind of a backward and peer compatibility that will be provided. Okay, now the rest of the problems that we saw till now were very easy to understand. Okay, and the solutions were also easy to understand, but to understand this particular solution, we have to go into deep and learn about this entire OpenFlow table, how OpenFlow, each of the entries, each of the field in OpenFlow table is made. So all these things I believe are beyond the scope of this course on IoT. Okay, so this is not a course on networking or on OpenFlow, so we will not go that deep. So just understand that there is some particular field called ETH type, and based on the value of ETH type for a particular flow entry, we will know whether OpenFlow will know whether this is normal packet or a sensor OpenFlow packet. So that is how OpenFlow will know. Okay, so that is how some sort of a backward compatibility is provided. Okay, so these are all the problems and these are all the solutions that SDWSN and sensor OpenFlow, all the problems that they had and the solutions that they provided. Okay, so this is SDWSN and sensor OpenFlow. Okay, now I'm going to end this video, but before I end the video, we are going to look at only one more slide. This is the final slide. Okay, so this slide is from another paper. This paper is based on SoftWSN. This is also a SDN based solution for IoT for WSN networks. It is by Sudeep Mishra, the person I talked about a few minutes back from IIT Kharagpur. So they published this paper and they published these results, right? So the results that I want to show to you. See, this is the packet delivery ratio. See, soft WSN, this SDN based solution has a packet delivery ratio that is above 90%. Compare that to normal WSN, which has a packet delivery ratio of between 40 and 50%. Okay, so you can see this is also packet delivery ratio. On two different experiments, you can see that the packet delivery ratio in case of SDN is very high compared to your normal WSN. Also, in this two, you can see that the energy consumption in SDN is very low compared to WSN. Okay, so from both packet delivery ratio and energy consumption perspective, your SDN in WSN gives you better performance than your normal vanilla WSN. So yeah, with this slide, I hope you can see for yourself that using SDN is a better solution than using vanilla WSN. So I hope you understood everything. If not, go through the slide. You can of course WhatsApp me, you can mail me, or you can write your doubt in the comment section below. I will be providing you in the slide the links to the different papers that I referred for this slide. Alright. Uh, so this is a very interesting topic, SDN. We have this result itself should be motivating you to pursue this field. If you are interested in networking, then uh, if it interests you, go ahead and research this topic, SDN. These results that we have over here, these are very good results. So yeah, with this we have come to the end of this module 3 on SDN. I hope you understood everything in this module. Else contact me, okay, using WhatsApp mail, by writing your doubt in the comment section below. In the next video we will start another module. So see you in the next video. Thank you for watching this video. See you.